Hello, hello, lovey the lifers.
How
All
y'all
I'm here
doing?
to tell you guys is this.
What?
This got to be a high fire episode because the amount of shenanigans that has gone on with technology to get here today.
It happens.
Whew, Jesus.
Let me tell you something. Her computer said, I don't think so.
Y'all should know this. I love my computer. I
She did.
really have thought about getting a
Yeah.
new computer,
She
but
told
I
me
love
yesterday.
my computer so much. I mean, we just rock so steady, you know. And my computer was not rocking with me this morning, and I felt I was offended. I was offended. So it had to be nothing but the devil because what we're getting ready to talk about today. What we're getting ready to talk about today, you need. I don't even know who you are, but I know you need it. Why? Because we all need it. Because we are living through an unprecedented time financially
Woo!
where so many people are just feeling like they one step from the edge financially. And it's really important that even when things are a little bit rocky financially, that we do not forget that we are not poor. We are not in poverty. We do not have lack. We have access to abundance. So today's episode, and I want you to make sure you share this with somebody, okay? This is about the poverty mindset and really paying attention to what it will actually cost you.
But also, we want to also make very clear that we're not only talking about money, right? We're
No.
really talking about, okay. So we're also talking about like limiting, can I include this now? Limiting beliefs and
Yes.
scarcity thinking and and
Yes.
and and the ways in which you stop yourself from
Yes.
this, however you're defining it. It could be an abundance of love.
Oh, say that.
It could be an abundance of peacefulness. It could be an abundance of joy. Ooh, I know people that will stop up some joy. Ooh. So this poverty mindset that we're talking about definitely can be about money, and we'll talk about that for sure. But I want you to, if you are a person who says, "Well, I don't really have no problems right now financially, and I don't think this is for me," I want you to listen to this with a different set of ears. Listen to it for other areas where you might be limiting yourself or having some scarcity thoughts. Okay.
Absolutely. Because this the root of this episode is about how we limit ourselves, how we cap ourselves. Whether we're running a business, whether it's a job, whether it's in a relationship, there is so many different ways that we think that we have access to less than what we actually have access to. I know you were talking maybe like a week or two ago where you were saying that you specifically heard God saying, "Stop limiting me."
And I was like, do I be doing that, Jesus? Are you sure, Holy Spirit? Are you talking to me? What? I'm still limiting you? I be feeling like I'm out here on a limb. I be feeling like I'm out here. And if he had the nerve to say, you're still limiting me, I'm like, are you kidding?
He was not. So the thing, the thing is, so there's this, and I will look up the person, but there was this thing that I used to research a lot, and it was called the tragic gap. And there's this gap between what you think is possible and what's actually possible. And it's called the tragic gap because since you don't believe it's possible, you never go there. Like if you don't think it's possible for you to have the love of your life, you never look for the love of your life. You look for somebody who's safe. If you don't think it's possible for you to be like slim and trim and muscular and healthy, you don't go there. You just be like, I just need to lose 5 pounds. So there's this gap between what we as people have the capacity for and what we actually believe we have the capacity for. And what the goal is to make that gap as small as possible. So we hope that today's episode will make that gap as small as possible so that you have no limits on what you believe is possible for yourself. We're starting with this concept of money because for a lot of people that is kind of where some of that starts, but the belief affects everything from like what you charge, what you're willing to negotiate for, what jobs you apply for, what you ask for in personal relationships, romantic relationships, professional relationships, what you're willing to tolerate, what you'll invest in, right? Where you'll put some money on something, where you'll put some time and some energy on something. But most importantly, it's all about how you see yourself. And we want you to not have any Zero internal ceilings about who you are. I want you to not play about you from here on out.
Yeah, I think that's a good one, that internal ceilings right there. Many of us have thought about, probably as women, we probably thought about the glass ceiling, how much you can achieve in a particular field of work or at certain companies, and whether or not you can break through the C-suite or whether or not you can be in a position of power. But we probably haven't thought a lot about our internal ceilings. Like, yeah, we're aware of these external experiences, but how are we doing any of that limiting internally? How does that show up on the inside of us? I think that's a very big question, because so many of us want to take care of everything that's out there,
Woo-hoo.
but we don't want to start in here. And this is where, when you get a command of the inside, when you get to know you really, really well, that is where the power box is, I think.
And we talked about this, other obviously we have talked about this, but we also talked about it on the podcast before and different things about how this can show up. And so this particular episode, we kind of tapping back to something where we were talking about the mogul meeting. So we were talking about entrepreneur life. And at that point we had Catrice on, and she was talking about how she had to get to this place where she stopped quoting her business, like proposals and things based upon her budget, because she was looking at like, well, won't nobody pay this? Well, won't nobody pay that? And once she realized like, well, they budget not my budget, their bank account not my bank account, she realized like, I need to price my services based upon the value that I'm providing and not what I could personally afford. And I think we get into that so many times, especially for entrepreneurs. And obviously I work a lot with therapists, and this is a common topic that comes up in my coaching sessions. Okay. Because we are constantly having people telling us that we should be offering a discount or a sliding scale or making things accessible. And so when you are thinking about this from a financial perspective, a lot of times, especially if you're an entrepreneur, you will sabotage your own success if you haven't gotten to the place where you're comfortable with taking the limits off of your own capacity of what's possible for you. I don't know that I ever would have thought about, 20, maybe 10 years ago, I probably would have thought about it, but not 15 years ago. 15 years ago, I probably wouldn't have thought about somebody paying six figures to a counseling practice for some type of service. Like, I wouldn't have thought about that. I wouldn't have thought like, oh, well, sure, companies will pay $100,000 to a therapist for services. I would have never thought that. I would have thought it. And if I would have thought it, I would have thought, well, they're going to have to work a whole lot of hours for that. But that is one of those ways that it shows up, and it's not necessarily a bad thing. And I do want to touch on this for a second. If you consider yourself to be a good steward of resources, or, like responsible, or, fiscally conscious, or what have you, those are not bad things. Well, you want to make sure that it doesn't go to the extreme, because if you are trying to build something, whether it be a business or a career, you can go too far with that thing. And next thing you know, you're offering everybody a discount when you could be upping your prices.
Right. I think that's really a tough place to be, because there are some professions that we have um undervalued, and
Uh-huh.
we have accepted the undervalue as a culture and as a community. You were using counselors, social workers, that kind of thing, but let's think about teachers.
100%.
And every summer, teachers are trying to come up with the things that they need for their classroom, because they may not get it from their districts. And so they're putting out, that they need to get this for their classroom. Will you gift it? But there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with supporting a teacher friend that you have, or the colleague that you have, or whatever. But why have we so devalued that position, that role? When you have a good teacher, when you have someone that you can trust with your child for 8 hours a day to take care of your child, to educate them, to love them, when you have a good teacher, that is not somebody that should be out here trying to find some pencils. That is not somebody that should be out here trying to find some paper. They should have all the glue they need, all the glue, the scissors, the pencils. Why in the world are we sitting up here saying that not only are they not going to be paid well, but we're not going to supply them well with what they need to do such phenomenal work when you have a good teacher? Like, what is that? And then you have and when I think about like counselors, you know that I know that many counselors take issue with charging what is reasonable and appropriate for the work that they do. Here's the thing: counselors go to school just as long as lawyers.
Period.
And I don't know what lawyers have to do after school, but counselors are going to go get the bachelor's degree, then they're going to get the master's degree, which is 2 to 3 years. That includes an internship and practicum. And then to get licensed in our state, before you can get licensed, you have to do another 2 years of being paid at a bachelor pay, usually, before you get licensed, and then take a test. So you're talking about the 4-year degree, the 3-year master's, and then 2 to 3 years after that. That's what people do to become doctors. And y'all sitting up here talking about we can only take $50 for the hour.
Not $50.
I don't think so. Now, I believe in charity and philanthropy, and I think that that makes sense. But I also think that as a person who's highly educated and certified and licensed and credentialed to do the work that I do, that it's okay that that come with a higher price point of expectation regarding the work that I do.
Right. And I think what we're really talking about here is not the number, right? We're talking about the belief system beneath the number. So the
Right.
belief system is I shouldn't ask for this, or I don't deserve this, or they can't afford this, or this should be accessible. That belief system comes from somewhere, and chances are it's showing up in multiple areas of your life. So let's talk a little bit about where some of the roots of this come from, because I think what we'll see is if you identify some of where it's coming from, you'll see where it's going, right? So I think for some people, there is this fear component. We have to just be honest about that. I'm afraid that if I try to charge more, I won't be able to get paid. I won't have enough customers. If I try to charge more, people will not want to hire me. If I try to hold the line on my rate. I was having a conversation with a therapist this week, and she is a sweetheart and really wants to pay her she's expanding her into a group practice. She wants to give her staff a great salary. And I said, I want you to give them a great salary, but I don't want you to handicap yourself on the front end. So let's look at this not from the perspective of, if I don't give them what they won't come, but how can we strategically create a financial plan that makes sense for both of us? And women have not been taught this. Women have been taught to accept whatever we are given without batting an eye. We're taught to be nice and be grateful and be appreciative.
Is that how it sounds?
That's how they say it. I don't say that. Well, what do you say? You have to say thank you. Why am I saying thank you for something I don't want?
Sugar and spice and everything. Sugar and spice and everything nice, baby.
But that is what we are taught. And so I think specifically for women, we have to have this conversation, because there is a connection between you accepting whatever people have told you and not wanting to be seen as, I'm not going to say the B word, but you don't want to be seen as a B word.
Don't want to be seen as the B word. Don't want to be seen as a complainer. Don't want to be seen as a troublemaker. Don't want to ruffle feathers. I think the same.
Especially as a Black woman.
Because we already are going to
We don't want to be the angry Black woman.
You already got something to say about what we're doing. The most educated women in the room, and y'all got something to say.
And that is why we have been targeted during this current administration for all these massive amounts of layoffs. Because when y'all said get a degree, we'll give you the job, we said, bet I'm going to get 2 of them suckers.
3 degrees. 2 degrees and 6 certifications.
And then now that we got it, you're like, well, that doesn't make you qualified. Well, then what does? What makes you qualified?
Did you actually get that? Like, what were your grades? Did you deserve to get into the school where you got that from?
So that all of that goes into this mindset of there's not enough to go around. I better take what I can get. I just want to help people. So whatever they say, and we sometimes talk about this here on the podcast.
What? Where are you going? I feel like what?
Some of this also comes from the church.
Oh Lord, leave the church people alone today, ma'am. Leave the church people alone, ma'am.
Because you know when they gave you that nasty candy that you didn't want on Easter,
Oh Lord, have mercy. Oh Lord.
you better say thank you.
Well, you do have to say thank you for the. You have to. I mean,
It got the candy got lint on it.
they gotta say thank you. If they're gonna receive it, they gotta say thank you. They could just say, "Here's what we really need to say. Here's what we really need to say. No, thank you."
No, thank
That's what we
you.
really
No, thank you.
need to say is that when we don't want something, let's just say no, thank you, so that we're not being forced to say thank you for things we don't want. Right? I think that's really what the issue is.
I'm
And
saying
here's the
something.
thing.
Sunny Grace ain't gotta tell nobody thank you. I'm just saying. I didn't know this all along, so I probably made some missteps with my kids. Let me tell you something. If somebody try to make something and say thank you for something she don't want,
Let me tell you something. The way my sister is about this baby, my God, today. Like, I have seen her raise 4 children, and I have not seen this side of her ever. The way she feel about my child, oh Lord.
but here's the thing: it's not just about Sunny Grace, although she is the TT's favorite. But the truth is, when you having raised 4 daughters and seeing what happens when you raise kids that just want to be nice, who don't, and like I have one child who's
What?
I
What?
have one child who is conflict avoidant to almost a fault. She really prefers to just be she like my kids sometimes. So I don't do the Deion Sanders, but my kids will sometimes be like, well, which one of us is your favorite this one? And this one is the best at this one. So my kids will sometimes like want a ranking. So I have one child who is clearly the nicest child, like period point blank. Nobody and all the children agree to this. But it's not always in her best interest though, because since she's always clearly desired to be the nice one, she sometimes will tolerate and accept things that she really doesn't deserve. Like she definitely, I'm like, you deserve better than that. And so having watched what happens when you don't like shape that, I'm shaping it in Sunny Grace.
I think one of the things that I do live by now when I see, especially girls who are spirited and strong and
Yes.
thoughtful, when they have their own opinions and
Yes.
personality, you see that in them when they're early. I know
Yeah.
a lot of people want to shush that. They want to bring that down. They want
Yes.
to diminish it. And I just think it's easier to help someone who is in that vein than it is to try to bring somebody up.
Yeah.
Because when you're trying to get someone who is that one who's made a lifestyle of people pleasing and trying to be nice to now use that voice, it does take a lot more work, I think, than it does to say, hey, can we tone down something? So I
Right.
would rather tone it down a little bit than to have to tone it up. And
Right.
if you find that you are the person who is the one who needs to tone up, that's okay. We're here for you. We want to help you with that.
Right.
But you got to first acknowledge that there's some tone up that needs to happen.
Right. Because I think when we're not thinking about like when we're just saying poverty mindset, we want to be like, that's just some affirmations. That ain't it, sis. Like you like I'm a believer in affirmations,
Mm-hmm.
but if in your core is more than just the number. In your core is like I have to be nice, I have to be liked, I have to be, I'm afraid of being disappointing people. I'm afraid of hurting people. I'm afraid of being neglected or rejected. Like if that's the core of it, which is what we're saying, right? We're saying that the poverty mindset, we sometimes want to think about it as like you grew up in the ghetto. Like that's not what we're talking about. We're
Yes.
talking about at some point along this journey, you have internalized this idea that is probably permeating your entire existence, which is there isn't enough to go around, or I have to earn, or there has to be like a trade off or something. And what we're saying, if the Bible tells you that you are entitled to life and that more abundantly,
Yes.
then abundance is the opposite of poverty, if I'm not mistaken.
I mean,
So
that's what it said.
we have to wrap our minds around where that comes from so that we can uproot it.
So I think you gave some examples for entrepreneurship, but let's make sure we do give some examples for employees so that they can find themselves in the thought process here. So if you're an employee, if you're not negotiating your salary,
Mm.
if you just expecting, for somebody to come to you and tell you when you need a raise rather than asking for one when you know that it's appropriate, If you are, this is probably my pet peeve right here.
Oh,
Accepting opportunity instead of compensation. You
oh my God, my
you
God.
cannot pay your bills with opportunity. You are not about to pay your bills with opportunity. When people talking about exposure, you'll get
Uh-uh.
exposed. You are not about to pay your bills with exposure. You're gonna have to pay your bills with compensation. What
Period.
about this? Staying in an underpaid role out of loyalty. But I built this
Mm,
team, but my team is depending on me. I've been the
mm,
director over this group for so long. And if
yeah,
I push the envelope, if I ask for what I really think I want or what I need, how do I know I'll get it? What about my team? And then there's always this one, saying yes to extra responsibilities without pay.
that goes back to the teachers you were talking about. That go right back to the teachers.
And it does. And it does. And you would be surprised that, for those people who've never, Calvin and I both worked in education. So we have seen what the requests are of teachers and how their roles by the end of the year start one way and end another way. By this one little more thing, one little more thing, one little more thing, one little more thing, and not necessarily having compensation. And
Right.
so that can happen in any position that you are accepting more work without making sure that you are being paid well for the job that you're doing. And
Right.
that's how it can show up.
And really and truly, there's two things I want to really like zone in on this. A, it's okay if you're saying like I want to do this. Like if you're saying these are things that I really do want to do, I enjoy these things. They're paying me, they're compensating me in another way. If that works for you, fine. But I just want you to be really clear what you're also saying and how
Mm,
this goes out into the world. Because if you say I really am, like I'm really okay with this because I'm single, I don't have any kids, I don't mind it. Great. But what you're saying is the next time they come in contact with a single woman who doesn't have any kids, who maybe doesn't want that, their expectation now changes. So it's
mhm.
not just about what you do and don't do, but it's about how you position what you do and don't do. So yeah, I'm willing to do this time. However, next time, can we build this into the grant so that there's some funding for it? Or I'm willing to do this temporarily, but next semester I'm not willing to do this. So it's not just about the thing, it's about the conversation and the thought and the belief around the thing. So for a lot of us, we are on autopilot with some of this stuff. We're not being conscious about it. And at the end of the day, the end of the week, the end of the month, we're frustrated and we don't even know where to start with the solution because we haven't actually like dug around in any of the stuff that we just have accepted as the norm and the expected. And I know that there are other career paths than what we have kind of talked about today that don't have that be the case. When you get a lawyer, right? When we like we do you I'm opening two emails, 0.025 of an hour. Like I'm drafting a half a page. That's point half five, point five of an hour. Every single thing is being documented. When you really start to think about it like that, you're like, oh, wait a minute. I do a lot of stuff for free. I
Right.
have undervalued my own time, my
Mhm.
own, expertise, my own knowledge. And I don't think that's in my best interest. And how can I begin to kind of shift that? And one of the things that
Agreed.
we want you to do as you're shifting it is to get honest about what the cost of things is and what the value of things are. Okay. So especially if you are thinking about in terms of like being an entrepreneur, but even if you're thinking about how you begin to negotiate a salary for yourself, or how about this one, we did
Uh-oh.
not bring this one up,
What?
in a relationship with a
Yeah.
significant other where you're starting to negotiate what each person will bring to the table. Sometimes
Mm.
people think because they bring a particular dollar amount to the table, that what the effort that a person is bringing to the table is not as valuable when they are both very much valuable.
Right. Right.
So,
It is.
thinking about the value of things like, are you saving a particular amount of time? Are you avoiding mistakes or avoiding costly missteps, right? Are you helping someone to have increased access to something? Are you accelerating their goals? Like if you are doing those types of things, you do have value. I don't know if there's been like this. So it seemed like maybe like a year ago, there was this whole big old movement about like trad wife. Everybody was talking about trad wives
Yeah.
on TikTok. But now the thing is, all these stay-at-home moms, their husbands are like, I'm not saying all of them, but there's like several people where the stay-at-home moms were like, I've been a stay-at-home mom for 5 years, 10 years, 15 years. My husband just left me. He doesn't want to pay child support. He doesn't want to pay spousal support. He doesn't want to pay
I
this. He
got
doesn't want
that.
that. And so I think it's like the pendulum has swung where people are starting to have this conversation about, yes, you may want to be a stay-at-home wife. Yes, you may want to be a stay-at-home mom. Maybe you want to be a homeschooling mom or what have you, but you need to make sure that prenup or those bank accounts or whatever is set up that recognizes your value that you bring to the table, even if it's not a specific monetary value.
Right, because the contribution is undeniable. And
Period.
and honestly, if you paid anyone to do what your typical stay-at-home mom is doing, it would cost a whole lot more
Right.
than what this person is ever having access to, than what the current stay-at-home mom has access to. It doesn't even
Right.
make sense. But I think that again, we're talking about whether or not this person has had this thought process about how important they are and
Right.
about what they're bringing to the table. Because you have to be a woman who is confident to be able to say to your partner,
Yes.
listen, me being at home and not working outside the home and taking care of the children is not something that I will allow to be devalued. And so, how are we going to negotiate this for me? Like, I don't want to have to ask you for my spending money.
Mm-mm.
I I don't wanna have to ask you for my savings account. Listen, you don't have stay-at-home moms don't have any money going into Social Security. I want to know that my retirement is safe and sound. Like, I want to be able to retire. So how are we doing that? Like, but you have to have a place of confidence to be able to even have that conversation with your partner. And
Right.
hopefully have chosen a partner that has the good sense to meet you there and wanna make sure that that happens for you. Because that's a whole nother can of worms that we can get on. We can get on that if y'all want to.
Well, what we tend to see, particularly in women, more than these really thoughtful conversations where they are
Yeah.
recognizing their value and they are advocating for their appropriate compensation, raises, careers, what have you, we see overgiving, we see
Mhm.
over explaining,
Mhm.
we see over accommodating, we see over discounting, we see overworking. Right? And sometimes we see just avoiding conversations where we don't feel like it's going to go our way.
Yeah.
And this is like this is what thinking about the kids. This is one of those things that has been challenging for me because I want to encourage my kids to be negotiators, but then they want to negotiate with me all the time. So it's definitely a two-edged sword, but I do want them to be I do want I don't want ever want my kids to settle for no. I don't ever want them to settle for this is as good as it gets. And so if you find yourself doing that a lot, I just want you to maybe, put a little pin in it that this might be something that is related to like a poverty mindset or a scarcity belief of some sort. And use whatever term feels good to you. Like some of these terms are very, very charged and loaded and they have some negative connotation to it. But the idea is we want you thinking abundantly, period, point blank, about
Right.
everything from your money to the quality of your life. That's why we own the Love You to Life podcast.
I
That's why
mean,
we
that's
call it the Love Your Life podcast.
here you bring up this interesting point though when you're talking about the parenting part of this that I would encourage parents to incorporate this into their family culture so
Yeah.
that it is something more accessible for their child outside of the home. You're not going to be able to expect your child to have a voice outside the home if they don't have a voice in the home.
Mm,
Something that not been able to practice in a safe space with a power figure as as a parent, authority figure as a parent. So if they have not been able to practice that and to hone in on that and to do that at home, don't expect them to go outside and do it. So if you are the one who will not allow your child to have an opinion, or you are feeling so disrespected anytime your child takes issue with something that you are doing or something that you say or something you want done, then we probably need to be saying, like, are you setting them up to be able to negotiate for themselves and to speak up for themselves outside the home? Now, here's the thing. Don't get me wrong. I am not for kids not having respect for their parents or for not, obeying family rules and things like that. But I am for open conversation and for
right.
communication. And at the end of communication, like they can say what they want to say, and the answer might still be what I said. That don't
Period.
mean I'm changing the answer. And I think that's one of the things that gets lost in this conversation around parenting is like,
Mhm.
we're not saying that you got to change your rule or that it's not going to be what you said, but we are saying that you do want to raise a kid who can talk to you. And when that kid can talk to you, and they can go outside the house and talk to other people when they need to do that too.
Right.
So so women, hey moms, your kids are watching at the house. They're paying attention at the house.
So as
Okay.
we start to move into this more abundant mindset, here's some just a few thoughts that I want you to start to see how it sits with you, right? So value creates value. So when I
Yeah.
bring value, I deserve to be compensated with value. My
Mhm.
growth is feeding others. Money doesn't change my character, it amplifies my character. That's one of those things that I think sometimes really people have a hard time with, like, who will I be making $1 million? Who would I even be? Like what will that look like?
Mhm.
I can build and belong. That
Yeah.
loyalty piece of like, ooh, if I'm moving out the neighborhood and who am I going to be, that kind of thing. Expansion is responsible. And I think this is a really common conversation, especially for people who are thinking about building something, because when you start to like villainize, and sometimes for good reason, the upper limit of, the upper echelon, the one percenters, the billionaires, those type of things, you look at them and you start to like villainize them for, reasonable reasons. We have those feelings, but it can also create some internal conflict with you around financial abundance. And so you want to make sure that you're having those kind of conversations, because most of us were raised for survival. Most of us were raised for enough. A lot of us were raised to sacrifice, or to expect to sacrifice. I think one of the things that we kind of got in our family of origin is you share everything, but usually that means nobody has enough.
Share child, share everything.
And this is like, this is very, very, very current event. But have you paid attention to Glorilla's sister?
Okay. So I have not seen the video yet, but
What?
your cousin, I haven't seen the video, but your cousin in Memphis, I think she sent it to me. I think I need to watch it. I think I'm behind on I haven't seen it, huh? Your
Can
cousin
look
sent it to
up.
me. We talked about it on Friday.
Okay.
So I know it happened, but I haven't seen the video.
Okay. So for those of you who haven't seen the video, Glorilla, the singer, I don't have a song right off the top of my head. I can hear
Rapper. She's a rapper. Let her
rapper.
cook.
She's a rapper, and she gives a little rough around the edges, but I think she's kind. So I'm just gonna
I
say
love
I, I don't
I
know
love
any. I don't know if she's a terrible person. I don't know it. I'll just put it like that.
I don't know it
However,
either.
I think she won a Grammy recently, and her sister, it is her sister who has a very masculine presentation, but I think she does consider herself a female, came out and was pissed because she said that Glorilla does not take care of the family appropriately.
Right.
And I think there have been other members of the family who said, like, hey, she's doing enough because there's like 9 siblings and parents.
Right.
And if you know anything about like how, if you old enough to know how Left Eye described how you could sell 1 million records and still be broke, you know that a relatively new up and coming rapper probably has a lot of access to money in terms of like hair, makeup, jewelry, clothes that they're technically paying for. So there may not actually be a ton of cash. There's advances, and then you pay for it on the back end while you're touring. But the sister was basically saying that Glorilla hadn't given them enough money. That even though she had I think she gave the parents a car and then maybe done some different things, she felt like she wasn't doing enough. But a lot of us were raised like that, where if one person got it, we all got it, even though the we all that we got wasn't enough for everybody to begin with. So if you are raised like that, even if you're trying to be the first person in your family to hit $1 million or whatever the case may be, some of this stuff is probably still in there. And what can actually happen when you have like a poverty mindset, even though you're actually making really good money, you never feel like it. You always feel broke, and you're either scared to spend and invest, or you overcompensate by overgiving and investing. So that family of origin piece, we had to touch on that. And I just thank Glorilla's sister for giving us a good example.
Oh my goodness gracious. Dear Glorilla's sister, thank you for getting us podcast content.
Because
Thank
I mean,
you.
she went in on her sister. I mean, like she and TMZ, they every so often they did back into their old treacherous ways. They gave her a platform to like be on their network or whatever. And so she's talking about like when she be able to do it.
What? She said what? She said yabba dabba do. What?
She talked like she got a mouthful of, like David said, she got like a mouthful of rocks. That's how she talked. She told her she got a mouthful of rocks.
Here's the thing we need to make sure we're considering. She is also a part of the system. There's a reason why she believes that. So
Right.
if that's from the family system, if that's from the ethnic or cultural system, whatever it is, she is a part of the system. There are probably other people who are going to believe her point of view. And here's the thing. Some people may not agree with what she's saying, but they live in agreement with what she's saying.
Right.
Like,
right.
folks are gonna say, no, she don't do that. No. But will probably still be the ones to do the extra, to be the overgiver, to go above and beyond without paying attention to what they really need for themselves. And I think that, culturally, it is something that definitely shows up in our community. And
Right.
we know that it shows up in some other communities as well. But we know it's in our community for sure.
So
Yeah.
specifically, if you're the older sister, if you're the first generation of something, you might want to listen to this episode a couple of times because there's a good chance that there's some stuff down in there that need to come on out. Okay? So
I think you did a great job. I think you did a great job at that point about feeling broke when you aren't. Like being afraid to spend and also feeling, sometimes people are feeling broke because they're going to take on the responsibility of other people. And so they're
Right.
holding that in their mind about what they can actually
Yes.
do with their own earnings. Because like, oh, what if this person needs their rent paid? Oh, what if this person fall behind on their car payment again? Oh, what if her and them babies be out? I don't want them to go on the street. Like, so sometimes you're feeling broke because you're holding space in your mental for what's going on with somebody else when it's not your responsibility.
Right. And that, I mean, like, we definitely seen that a lot.
For sure. We've seen that.
So, how are the key here is what are some practical ways that you can start to have an identity shift, right? And we want you to this is not just about how you're thinking. Like, so it's not just the affirmation piece, but it's actually what you like teach your body is safe. Because from like a brain science part of this is like some of this stuff that if you grew up really, really poor, which I think like Glorilla and their family, like they really, really was poor, right? When you grew up that way, you do get entrenched in this survival mode. This is me or you. If you got it, you better give it to me. Like that can be a part of your nervous system, actually. So there's some simple ways that you start to do some things and some practices. So like if you're an entrepreneur, I want you to audit your prices.
That sounds good.
If you know that every single expense you have in 2026 is 5 to 10% higher than it was last year, why are you still charging the same thing?
Right.
Audit those prices, raise at least one of your offers by 10, 20%, and practice saying it because sometimes people can't even say the number. They can't say the number. So practice saying the numbers, right? Instead of looking for a way to create a discount, look for some way that you can create a premium product. What is something that you can offer that's above and beyond, right? And maybe say like, I don't know how I would do that. And we've talked about this. I'm not sure there was a training that you went through and they were talking about like, maybe you don't deliver all the services. Maybe you say like, hey, I'm the housekeeper, but I'm also going to partner with a chef who can come in and like, so you come home to a clean house and dinner's cooked. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not saying you got to suddenly start cooking for them, but you add 10% on top of whatever the chef is charging. And I bet you've got a great deal, those kind of things. So really start looking at how you can expand rather than contract, especially in a season where there seems to be a lot of contracting going on. Now, if you're not an entrepreneur, you are not off the hook.
Period.
Okay. I want you to look at what your actual market value is for the job you're doing right now. What is your market value? What are you supposed to be earning? Look on Indeed or whatever, where people looking for jobs, where is that? If you want to have a raise, if you know that you are bringing in more income or you are, bringing more value to the company, I want you to look at what it would be like to have a raise conversation. Pull out ChatGPT and practice that son of a gun. Okay. I want you to stop volunteering for unpaid labor everywhere.
Yeah.
One of the things that I started doing probably around kid 3. I probably did it the first 2. I probably was still doing a lot of it. But around
What?
kid number 3, I would sit there when they would ask for volunteers and put my hands down.
And why were you putting your hand down?
Let me see if somebody else is volunteering first. If
Okay.
nobody volunteers or if they need some extra volunteers, I might chip in. But sometimes people get really comfortable with the same 2 or 3 or 4 folks volunteering. And that's probably at your kid's school, at your church, for the family dinners.
Yeah, I think that for some folks, it's gonna be really tough for them to sit on their hands.
I need you to do
This
it.
this is gonna be new for them. The idea of not jumping in to save, not jumping in to rescue, not jumping in to help. And I also wanna say, like, it is really okay to separate those 2 things. You can be when I'm thinking about entrepreneurship especially, you can be a very giving person. It does not mean you're gonna give your business away.
My God, my God.
That's not what that means. Like, you can totally have your prices set for the work that you do and the value that you provide, and you can be intentional and specific about the work that you're gonna do that is for charity or that is for something that's
Yeah,
philanthropic,
absolutely.
right? And 2 things don't have to necessarily mix. They can be 2 separate things, and it's good enough. It's good enough what you are doing outside of your work. It is good enough. Why are you why are you laughing? Oh, Lord.
Because I can usually come up with a good Cosby Show, different world parable.
What happened on
I
the
can
Cosby Show?
always come up with a good pop culture parable from the Cosby Show or a different world.
Okay,
And I'm sitting up here thinking about,
what is it?
I'm thinking about the episode of A Different World
Okay.
where Tupac was there
Yeah.
and Jada Pinkett was there
What
and
was Tupac's name on that?
Piccolo.
Piccolo, Piccolo, yes, Piccolo.
So
Oh,
Lisa was
yeah.
asking Professor Wayne
Mhm.
about, whether or not she was bougie, whether or not she had changed. Because her friends
Yep.
had come into town and they were now saying, like, you used to be down for us. And she's like, no.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so he was like, well, if you asking me if you've changed, yeah, you have. And so he went on to tell her the story about how he went back to his old neighborhood and a friend of his was like trying to get him to invest in something. He was like, man, I'm just, like, that's not where I am right now. I can't do that kind of thing. And he was like, maybe someday we'll cross paths again. It'll be different. But until then, I'm just Dwayne sell out Wayne to him, and that's okay. So some of us got to make peace with being sell out Wayne a little bit longer so that we can get where we're trying to go. Because not coming from a perspective of not putting those boundaries in place around that energy, around that ask. Maybe for you, like you say, like, hey, I can't quite say yet that I'm not gonna put them in my budget, but I'm gonna give it a specific dollar amount. And I'm not letting it
Yes.
go above that. Like, you know what I'm saying? So there might be layers to this for you, especially if this is something that has been generational for you, but you got to move in that right direction because the poverty mindset is costing you time, it's costing you money, it's costing you confidence, it's costing you the compounded effect. Like, we should probably not think about this. The money,
What?
the money you've been loaning to people that could have been somewhere gaining some interest.
Don't do it.
Don't do it.
Don't do it. Don't think
Don't do
about it. Sis, just let it go. Just let it go unless you need that information so that you can make a different decision. Because sometimes when you come eyeball to eyeball, face to face with the truth and the reality, it is what you need to push you in the direction so you can make a different choice. So if you need that, do it. But if you already got your mind made up that you're going to do something different, don't look.
Don't look
Don't
because
even
it'll make you want to choke them. So don't
look.
don't do it. But I'm just saying, if you were on the fence about this, I just need you to know that go do one of them calculators where it tells you how much money invested because you gave somebody $1,000, $5,000 to start their chicken shack business and they blew it on something or gave it to some deadbeat boyfriend. That money could have been in your account. Is all I'm saying.
The other thing I really want to bring up here before we close out, when we're thinking about this poverty mindset, I also want you to think about the abundance of time.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that if you have time, it's the one thing that you're not going to be able to replace. You
Right.
cannot go and like really buy that, right?
Right.
So when you are spending time on things that don't make sense, when you're spending time not being paid for doing work, I want you to be thinking about who you would rather spend that time with. What you would
Mm,
rather be doing with that time. Are you missing out on something with your children because you're doing some work for free? Are
mm,
are you working extra now, and so you're away from your family, or you're not able to take that trip or take that vacation or whatever because you've allowed somebody else's priorities to enter your budget, so now you gotta work extra? Like,
mm.
all of these things build on another. So when she's
Right.
talking about that compounding, they really do build on another, and the one thing that you are not gonna get back is time. And
Right.
so, if you can boil this down to how much time is costing you,
Right.
even when you think about the time in your mental, about whether or
Mm-hmm.
not you're making the right decision, the way you're having to go through the thought processes of this, something else to consider, that this poverty mindset is not just dollars and cents. It
Right.
crosses over into so many different areas. And we want you to love the life that you have. And
Yes.
therefore, we gotta bring these to you. When we think about them, we gotta bring them to you.
Gotta bring it. And here's the
Yep.
thing. We always, because we love you to life, we want you to always be leveling up your mindset. And that means that you have to identify the areas for growth, the stuff that needs to be uprooted, the stuff that needs to be planted. And so you can't, I think what sometimes I'm gonna say in the traditional kind of like personal development space, they start planting these abundant seeds, but they don't uproot the stuff that's in there. So
Oh,
you planting some abundant seeds, but you got all these weeds up in there that's keeping them from growing. So we hope this episode has uprooted some of those poverty weeds that have been in the garden, and that you've been planted, maybe just the idea of abundance, but what that can look like and how you can stair step your way to that as well.
sounds good.
We hope that you have enjoyed it. We hope that it has been a blessing to your soul, because, like I said, technology was trying to prevent it from coming out. So somebody needed it. I don't know exactly who needed it, but somebody did. But we love having you be a part of our Lifer community. We want you to stay connected to us in all the fun ways. Below, around this episode, somewhere, you're going to see all of our social media handles. You're going to see all of our like our website and different resources that we have available for you. So please stay connected to us and do us a favor, because if you have anybody in your life that has anybody in their life that might be trying to keep them poor in the mind, please share this episode with them so that they can get what they need and have what they need moving into abundant 2026 and beyond.
I love it.
All right.
All right,
See you all next time.
Bye bye.